Alright, here's the design we're doing on this video. I have titled it Roses and Daisies. It's a mixed media project with, we used some paper and some stenciling, and quite a fun little project to do. A cute, cute project. So I can't wait to show it to you. Let's get started. Alright, we are going to start this project. I first base coated, this is just a wood piece, 10 by 10, and I base coated it with one coat of cotton candy with my dampened artist sponge. Be sure and apply a coat of multi-purpose sealer on first, let it dry. And so that's dry, and now we're going to take the stippling sponge and we're going to dip into my white and the terra coral. I think I might start out with that one, and we're just going to start stippling this on here by pouncing the paint on and letting it gently blend by moving our sponge and a white there. Just very easily tapping and very easily twisting and blending that paint a little bit. I'm going to go pick up some more white and a little bit of our base color, which was cotton candy. And we'll go over here on this side. A little bit lighter element over here. I'm going to pick up a little bit of terra coral and blend that in. I don't want it to be quite as dark as that side, a little bit lighter. And then just gently blend where they meet. You don't want it to turn muddy, so don't overwork it. See if I can hold that up so you can see it a little bit better. We're getting a nice mottled background. We're going to pick up some more white and some boysenberry pink, which is a much brighter pink. I think we're going to go with it down here. I'm going to go into some cotton candy, and we'll work that in here, maybe. You want to kind of work while it's wet into wet, so you can very gently blend out the colors and they won't start drying on you. A little bit more of that pink. And then we're going to pick up some terra coral and finish out the other corner down here. A little bit more white. This is starting to dry pretty good here, so I'm going to have to be very easy when I blend those two in together right there. Continue to apply your paint. Go to any places that feel like there is a lot of hard stippling lines and just very gently blend them out while they're wet. If you can't blend them out anymore, if they're drying or starting to dry, then you'll just, if you don't like it, you'll just have to wait till it dries and then go back and apply a second layer on here. And you can do the background as many times as you need to get it to the look that you want it to be. I'm just barely touching this. I needed to smooth out a little bit and lay down a little bit more white in a couple of places, but I think that looks beautiful for our background. I love the color combination. So we're going to let this get dry, and then we've got some other stuff to do to the background before we put our pattern on. Okay, background is dry. It feels a little bit rough, so I'm just going to very lightly sand it. You can do it with a brown paper bag or a very fine, ultra fine sanding disc. Just want it to be smooth. Okay, so I've created a stencil for this design, a couple of stencils actually. I've created one with some words and the brickwork. So we want to add some bricks onto our design here. So I've got a makeup sponge, and it is not very absorbent, so when you use a makeup sponge you want to make sure that you don't pick up a lot of paint at once. So I pull a little bit out. We're going to go in Terra Coral and a little bit of burnt umber to darken our paint, and then just come over here away from the paint and mix it. Some kind of goober in there. Okay. Mix it on the sponge to get a little bit darker color than what that Terra Coral was originally. And you just want to go in here and create some random brick in here. And don't be concerned about, you know, making them even or anything like that. We just want to create a brick look in the piece. I'm going to put some over here, I think. Put more paint. And it can be a hit and miss, you know, we don't want solid bricks on here, so don't feel like you have to do that. Put a little bit peeking over the edge. Let's come up here and add a nice bunch of brick up here. Oops. I'm going to get a little bit of cotton candy and lighten that up just a little bit. I feel like it got a little bit dark there. That looks pretty good. Even though it'll probably be covered up over here, I'm going to add a little bit over here on this edge. And I think a little bit here. Some down here, just random places. Like I said, our design is going to be on this edge over here, and then maybe just a touch down here. We probably won't see this down here, but we'll put some one more place right down here. Try and keep my stencil straight. Okay, so we've got a nice arrangement of brick on here, and you can add even more if you want. Like this one here, I feel like I need to bring it down just a little bit. So I'm just going to create a few more underneath that. So our pattern goes here, and then we'll have some words over here. And I've got a large empty space here, so maybe I'll just drop in a couple of bricks in there. Okay, make sure you keep your bricks straight as you're putting them on there. You don't want your bricks to be going crooked, downhill, uphill, anything like that. Okay, and then you can just look at it and determine if you want more brick on there or not. Completely your choice. Next we're going to spatter. And we're going to use burnt umber and white. And I'm going to get some teal green out because this is one of the colors that's going to be in the design. So you can spatter with whatever brush you like to spatter with. I like to use a filbert rake brush, but I sometimes do just take a regular brush and spatter with it. So I think I also might spatter with some terra coral here too. So I've got water in my brush, so I'm going to thin my paint down a little bit. I want it to come off of a little bit more water and a little bit more paint. I want it to come off my brush easy, so I can make all these nice little spatters. I'm going to put it where I have the brick. Okay, I think that's enough of the burnt umber. Okay, so your next color, I think I'll go into some terra coral next. Our green we will use the least amount of. This might not show up very well in some places. Alright, let's go for some white next. I'm going to make sure that I get into some clean water so that I don't tint my white paint a color that I don't want. I got lots of water in my brush, so let's just go get that out. I don't know with the white paint why it always does that, those little streaky ones. It's the only paint that I ever have. I don't know if I'm getting it too thin when I thin it down, but it's kind of cool on this background, so I'm not going to stress over about it. I'm not usually a spatterer because it makes such a huge mess in my workspace, but sometimes it's just got to be done. Okay, we're going to use a little bit of the teal green. Now you'll want to go easy on this color. Don't overdo it. Okay, I think that'll be enough of that color for me. Alright, we've got a really cool background. And what's cool about this background is you can paint it in any color, first off, and then you can use it for so many different designs. So it's a good backup background to keep on hand, so that if you've got something you want to paint, but you're not really sure about a background, and you want it to be a little bit more, I don't know, aged and industrial kind of thing, then this is the perfect background for that. So I'm going to get it dry and get my pattern lines transferred on. Okay, let's get ready to put our pattern on. Now our pattern is a vase of roses here and daisies. So it's going to go right about here, and then we're going to have our words, one word or two words, whatever you want when we get to that point over here. Now, I am going to make mine a mixed media piece, so I have taken the vase and drawn it separately so that the packet will come with both of these designs. So if you want to cut one out of paper and use it, or if you just want to draw it on and paint it in. So I have cut a couple out of paper already by just laying my pattern on my scrapbooking paper and cutting it out. And I like both of these, but I want to put some washes on here, and I don't think the washes will show up as well on this darker color. So I'm going to go with this light colored one here. And I'm putting it pretty close to the bottom of the surface here to make sure I have room for my flowers that go up here. Okay, so what I did was I took my pattern and just very lightly traced the outside, the entire outside shape. You don't need to trace in here, but this is just for you to be able to cut it out. So I just traced it on there so I know where I'm going to be placing it. I want to make sure I've got a straight line down here, so I'm going to take my T-square and I think I'm going to mark a straight line right here. Make sure my T-square is very straight. Okay, so that's basically where I want it to sit, is on that line. And then I can go from there and adjust it to try and get it to match my lines that I drawn on here, which are not even in the right place, so I'm just going to erase them back. So really you just need to determine how far up off of your surface that you want it, and how you can determine that much easier if you lay the full pattern on here and see where it's going to lay, and then take your T-square and lay it along the bottom of your pattern line, and hold your T-square, pull the pattern out, and then draw your line on there. So that's the easiest way to do it. So I've got my line on there. I know where I'm going to put it, right there. It's going to look pretty awesome. So to prepare this piece, let me get rid of this piece of palette paper. We are going to use some decoupage for paper. It's an Americana DecoArt product. So I shook it up a little bit. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to get a damp brush. I'm going to lay it on my palette paper to coat it with the decoupage medium. And we want to give it a nice, good, generous coat of this medium all over the whole paper. Try not to let your paper move because you don't want it to get on the other side, because if you're going to put paint on it, you don't want to have that on there. And mine just moved, so what can you do? I have my fan on and it is drying this so fast. So probably would have been a good idea if I'd turned my fan off. Alright, see if I can pick it up. Move this over. Line up my bottom on that line. Right there. And press it down. Nice and smooth. No air bubbles. And it will dry pretty quickly. I also cut some squares for our words, if I decide to have one or two. I haven't decided yet. For our words, which the two words that I have to go with this stencil are create and inspire. So those are the words we're going to be using with that. We need to let this get completely dry. We want to make sure the edges are down really, really good. We don't want this peeling up off of here. Alright, I'm going to wash my brush out. I want to get this dry. Move these aside so we can use them here in a little bit. And we're going to get some paints out here. Move my palette around here. Let's get some of our greens out. Let's Let's get black green, leaf green, and teal green. Those are our palette lists. And you can put a little bit of avocado out too. That's one of our greens, but we just need a little bit. We're gonna wash in some color where our flowers are gonna be. We probably will end up not seeing any of this once we're done, but just in case, it's always good to have everything covered. So I'm just gonna get some of these greens out here with some water, and we're just going to create some washes in here of these colors. And I like things to be pretty juicy when I'm making washes, so, and then I can just pick up and move it around and not be too concerned about it. A little bit more darker green here. And I'm going to bring it all the way down to the vase and take it out here. Like I said, a lot of this we probably won't see, so we could like shape some of it for leaves just in case that we do see some of it peeking out. So maybe give it some leaf form. Some can be coming down here and down here. It all looks like the same color right now to me. So it's just undercoating, so you don't have to be too awful precise about anything. This is just, you know, an idea of things around it. And okay, I think that's good enough. That's just some background undercover kind of stuff. So now we need to let this all get completely dry. Alright, so while that is drying, let's go ahead and work on our words here. My makeup sponge, I'm going to cut off that paint that I used earlier. I use my makeup sponges till there's nothing left. I think we might use burnt umber on here for our words. Might add a tiny bit of black green in there to make it just a little bit darker, but these are the words that I have on here for here. So this will be a real stencil. This is just my template that I cut out. So I want to make sure I get my word on here straight, so I'm going to hold it up to the light so I can see where it is. Lay it down very carefully. I'm going to grab some burnt umber on my makeup sponge and a little tiny bit of black green. That's going to darken up that brown a little bit, because burnt umber can be a little bit transparent. It's definitely making a very dirty brown there. A little bit more paint here. Straight up and down, don't push at it, pull at it, be rough with it or anything. Okay, so we got Inspire. We're going to be putting some color on this paper and this paper, so we can have Inspire out here, and we can cut it down a little bit smaller if we need to. And so I'm going to go ahead and do Create while I'm here. So you will not have to hold yours up to the light, because your stencil, I make my stencils clear so you can see through them, and you can tell if that's straight. I'm not sure I cut my paper straight. Alright, we'll just go with it, because if we need to trim it up, we can. Alright, burnt umber, a little bit of black green. And we'll tap this in straight up and down. burnt umber. Okay. And there's create. So we'll determine later how we want those to look. So I am going, this is almost dry, I've got a little bubble there. I'm going to try and push that out while it's still a little bit wet. If you get bubbles in it after it's dry, you can just go in with a like a straight pin and poke a hole right where that bubble is, and take your finger, or wet your finger and take it on there and kind of smooth that bubble out. Okay, that's almost dry, so as soon as that gets dry, I'm going to put some areas of pattern on there. I probably won't transfer the whole pattern. I'm going to transfer like circles for the big flowers, and then I'll come back in with the daisies later, but right now we just want to concentrate on where we're going to be putting the roses. Alright, I put some circles on here to kind of indicate where I'll be putting our roses. So I just want to give a rough circle in here, and your roses don't have to be as big as the ones I'm making. If you prefer yours to be a little bit smaller, then you can do that. This one's kind of going to go over the picture a little bit, so I'm going to come onto the picture there. And then this one here. And I want one here. This one's kind of going to be behind this one a little bit. So we're just kind of getting an idea of where the placement of our roses will be. This is going to be a smaller one here. There's nothing too difficult about that. I want it to get dry though before we start adding in our colors. Okay, we are going to get our roses painted in now. So I am just going to kind of give you a guideline of where I kind of want my center to be. So I want my center to be here on this one, and this one's going to be turned out this way, and then this one will have a center almost directly in the center of it, and this one will be open down this way, and this one this way. So if you need to draw those lines in as a guideline, then do that, but this is a lot of freehand thing, so I want you to practice if you need to. So I've got a piece of scrap paper here where I practice one out. So I'm using an angle brush. This is a 1/2 inch angle. We're going to put white on the pointed edge and boysenberry pink on the other. We're just going to double load those colors, dip into the white, dip into the pink. Now we're going to work them into our brush back and forth. We don't want our white to become pink, so I mean we can go in and add highlight at the end, but try to keep your white white if you can. So we just want to stroke in some petals in the back here. Just kind of starting to form a back row here. I might even put one along here on this edge. Okay, now we want to come in and make a second row. So we're not going to start directly where that one was. We're going to go off away from it a little bit and start a second row. And I'm on paper, so it's really sucking the paint out. I'm going to go ahead and push a petal out here. So all I did was lay the brush down and I pushed the white edge of my brush out and then brought it back in, kind of curved it almost like a C stroke. Okay, I'm going to add a petal here, again push it out like a C stroke and bring it back in. Let's make a third row in here. You can do just 2 rows if you like. Do at least 2 rows, because 1 row just won't make your rows look very full. So then we want our cup here in the center. So I'm going to make it a pretty good size right there. Loading more white here. And I'm going to go ahead and stroke some outer petals out here. Just by doing that same pushing out stroke that I did there. And I think every designer does roses differently, so really you end up finding a style of painting a rose that works best for the way that you paint. Alright, I'm going to put one more in here and one more on the inner row in here. So let's start making our bowl now. So I'm going to come out from the edge of this one here where I stopped off, and I'm going to go out and turn it and come across, go out and come across. Let's make another row here. We're going to connect the two sides. Put one here and one across here. We're going to connect this side here. And I've got too many straight lines there. So now let's add some strokes in here. We're just pushing the brush out like we did over here on the edges and adding some strokes within those petals there. And my shape got a little oblong there, but you kind of get the idea. So I'm going to wipe my brush out. I want to get fresh paint to do this is best. And I moved over here to another area when I was loading because this looked like it was getting a little muddy. So I wasn't able to keep my white as I wanted. So let's load up for our... And sometimes you only need to dip into the white to get it because you probably got enough pink on your palette. So let's start up here and let's create outward petals. That's something in my paint there. And before I continue here on this one, I think I'm going to go over here and paint this one because this one I want some petals to lay on top. So let's give it some strokes over here. And then a second row. And an inner, and then we'll stroke some petals out here. And I'll put one here. Now let's form the bowl. With this one I can just bring it, because it's a smaller rose, just bring it right around like that. Just stroke and push out. And fill your rose up with some petals in here. Okay, so that rose is done. So now I'm going to go over here and finish this rose, and because it lays over this one, so I'm going to stroke over this one. A few petals. Let's do a second row in here. And I'm going to make my center a little bit more white there. And I think think I want my center to be a little bit bigger. Wipe my paint completely out. I feel like my white was turning to pink. Okay. And we're going to come around. And I'm definitely going to wipe the paint off my white edge that time because I picked up paint from that pink edge. Alright, put some petals out here just by pushing the brush, pushing the white edge out and kind of keeping the pink almost where you lay the brush. That's why practice is pretty important here. And we'll give it a few final petals in there. Alright, I'm going to go over here and do this little one. Again, wiping the paint out of my brush and loading fresh into my brush. Okay, so this one's a lot smaller, so we can make much smaller strokes, and you could go down to a smaller brush if you wanted to. And this one we're going to just kind of keep more easy pushing out strokes. Okay, so that one was pretty easy, I think. And let's go to the next one. I'm only wiping out my brush. I'm not washing out my brush unless I get paint way over where I don't want it. Okay, so this one is like we're seeing the center mostly on this one. So let's add some back strokes. Push a few out here. I definitely want a third row here. And then our cup on this one is going to be way down here. Alright, I just muddied up my paint there, so let me try this again. Wipe my brush off, I'm getting very muddy. Okay, so there's that one, and we got one left, and this one is pointed more down. So, load some paint in there. Let me get some fresh white out. Try not to, if your paint is starting to get dry or tacky or something like that on your palette, just go ahead and get some fresh paint out, because fresh paint is going to work best for this. We can have this one be a little bit it's going to go right over that one. Just keep laying in your petals. This one lost a little bit in through here. So let me get my pink loaded back in my brush here. Because I feel like I lost a little bit in there. Okay, so now we've got all of our roses. I think they look beautiful. And before we go much further, I should have done this before we went any further. I'm going to take my leaf green and my teal green, kind of mix them up a little bit. And maybe I better use black green. Black green and teal green here. I just want to make a kind of a dark teal. I want to kind of fill in the background area, and I'm just using this angle brush, but if you feel more comfortable, I'm just using the very toe of this brush, then just go get a small round brush. I really should have done this before we painted in our roses, and it's been a couple of days since I painted on this. Completely forgot that was the step because I didn't leave myself a note that that's what I wanted to do. So I have to come back in and stroke a few. A few white areas back on. We really just want our dark areas to be a little bit darker around those. Okay, I'm going to pick up just white on the toe and go back in here and touch up any places that I got green paint on. Oops. I think while we're doing this white here, we might just go in and brighten up some of this. We need some edges to be a little bit brighter. So just white on the toe of this brush. I want a little bit more crispness. So just put this on some edges that you feel like need to be a little bit brighter. And then over here we need just a touch. We really want that softness in our flowers, but we also want, you know, some definite structure and detail. Okay, I think those look pretty good. I'm going to take my black green. Now I'm still just using this angle brush, and let's take some terra coral and some boysenberry. Maybe I need to use a little bit lighter green. Or burnt umber. Let's grab some burnt umber. I don't remember what colors I put in the center of the other ones. I don't want us to have to get another color out, so let me try this. This is burnt umber and terra coral. I need to darken down in here, and that's not going to be dark enough, so let's put this in first. Use the water edge, smooth out wherever you need to smooth out. Guess I could go read my instructions. That probably would be very helpful. Okay, my instructions say black, green, and boysenberry, so boysenberry, that's the bright pink. I must have had a lot of black green in it, and not very much boysenberry. Here we go. That's a lot darker and deeper down in there. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then we'll put some cad yellow dots in there. I'm not going to worry too much about the green on the edge right there because we're going to put a daisy there. So let's get a small round brush. We'll add some cad yellow dots in here. Just down here in the center of our roses. And this is a pretty transparent color, so it's probably going to fade down in there a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to just dip into the white and mix those two on my brush. I'm just mixing the white with the yellow that was already on my brush. And we'll just add a little highlight in here. Now when these dry, we're going to come back and float to kind of set them down in there. But we got to get those completely dry before we do that. Okay, I'm gonna. So while I have a lot of these colors out on my palette here, burnt umber, I'll work it into my brush with some water, and we're going to float this. Now this is paper, so it's going to soak up your paint, so be sure and have plenty of water in there, or you can, when you apply this paper to your surface, you can add some of the decoupage medium to the top of it, and that will seal it a little bit so the paint won't soak down into the water so much, or the paper so much. And then we'll do here, we're going to deepen this, so I'm going to bring that out more, but I've got to let it dry because if I don't, I'll just ruin the paper. We'll go this way. A little water. And it won't, if you're working on raw paper, it will not take very much paint in your brush. So, okay, that feels dry. Mostly because I have my ceiling fan on, it's drying stuff pretty fast. So let's darken this and bring it over and up. And while that dries, we'll go grab a little bit of our teal green and really work this into your brush with some water so you can thin it down. And we're going to just add some teal green in here. I still had a little bit of burnt umber on my brush there, so it kind of mixed with that. Put some down here. I'm trying to match as close to my original one where I put these colors as possible. And I put a little bit over here. And we'll grab some of the pink, boysenberry pink, and we'll do the same. Pretty sheer. And we'll put some of that in here. If you need to, you can use your fingers, spread it around. When we get done, ultimately we won't see this edge at all. So you don't have to do that edge unless you decide that you don't want to put daisies in yours, and then you'll see it. So in that case you will have to shade it. So I don't want to shade any more around any of this. I'm going to add some black green to my burnt umber and really darken that because I need to get my leaves and everything painted in here. Our dots are dry, so let's go ahead and push those down in there. We're going to use mostly black green here. You can add a tiny little bit of burnt umber in there. You just want to go along that edge right there. You're not filling the whole bowl this time, you're just staying right next to that edge of the bottom cup. So we can really give it that deep look down in there. Put a little bit of it over here. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, I want to glaze on our roses with a little bit of cad yellow. So you're going to work it into your brush with some water so it's nice and sheer. Then just pick some areas on your rose that you want to add a little bit of yellow to. And you just get to be the judge here, where you think a little bit of yellow would really brighten up your rose. little bit more on this one out here. And that's just a little wash of yellow. So you got mostly water in your brush and you're just a tiny drop of that paint and blending it in there. I think I'm going to put some on this one. I'm trying to incorporate this in some areas where, and I'm doing a little bit more than I did on my original one. You can come back and darken this, you know, if you feel like it needs to be a little bit darker. Got some white on my brush there. Not really sure where that came from. So if you feel like you want your yellow to be a little bit darker, then just apply a second little wash of this color, a tint of it. And let's go down and put some of this yellow down here in our vase. I don't think I did this on my original one, but I'm going to add some down in here for this one. Just a little wash of it. So we're definitely going to be darkening up the side, don't forget, but I want to get all of my other elements in here. So I am going to get my placement for my daisies and my leaves, and we'll come back and start working on our leaves next, I think. Okay, most of my leaves I transferred on earlier, so I only had to draw a couple in. Like this one is on top of our rose here, and we're going to base all of our leaves in with avocado, so go around your rose there, and then we're just going right over the top of that one. Got a lot of water in my paint. We'll definitely apply 2 coats on here. And I've got one here. You can go to a smaller brush here. I've got one here. Two are almost right beside each other. I've got one that kind of comes down here. Now this is the daisy one, so I'm just going to push with the side of my brush and then just fill it in. I want that one to be a little more almost scraggly, and this one too. Just kind of dab it in there, fill it in. This one's going to be a daisy one as well. And this one's a rose leaf. I'll fill that in. This one can be either a rose or a daisy leaf, so whatever you determine it to be. So we'll just fill that in. And we've got a rose one here. And a daisy one here, so push. Just kind of little dabby strokes and then fill in. Dabby strokes for the outer edges to give it a little bit of roughness. And let's see, I think that's all that I put in here, but when we get done I might come back and add a few smaller leaves, and that you can do too. If you see something that you feel like needs a more, and feel free. Just a quick little second coat here. So Second coat should not take you near as long as the first coats because you've got the shape established and you're just making the second layer kind of fill in and be whatever it needs to be. It's just filling in gaps that the first coat left. That's kind of the way that I describe it. Alright, one more up here. And I've just put in some circles with my pencil. You can do it with a chalk pencil, of where my daisy centers are going to be, so I know where I'm going to be placing my daisies on here. Okay, so on our leaves, we're going to shade them with some black green. Flat brush out to do that. You can use whatever brush that you like to use. So angle brush, flat brush. I got some green on my rose petal right there. Come back and touch that up a little bit more. Okay, black green. Find a spot here on my palette to put it. Alright, we're going to go at the bases of our leaves here. Keep your paint nice and keep the bristles of your brush moist so that you can keep your paint wet so it doesn't dry out as quickly. And I'm just kind of stroking it in at the base of these. These are kind of some rough, kind of wavy type leaves, so not as smooth as what the rose leaves will be. So we're darkening at the base of everything. And we'll come back and repeat this, a few of them, maybe all of them, because they need to be just a tiny bit darker, and we'll add our veins in as well. Tuck a little bit of this. Of course, we won't see it after we add our daisies in. We won't see any of that back in there. Alright, another quick little layer of this, and this should be pretty quick because we're just darkening just a little bit. Oh, I missed one completely here. If your brush starts feeling dry, your paint's not moving for you, you need to pick up some water. Okay, let's create a center vein. And I'm just going to keep these leaves kind of simple. I don't want to add a lot of detail to them because they're not the focal point. So I'm just kind of using the chisel edge of the brush and leading with the water side and just pulling down. And that's leaving me a nice vein there in the center. And then one more up here. Oh no, we got two more. Okay, that's our center vein. Now we're going to highlight with a mix of leaf green and teal green. I'm just going to brush mix. I'm going to dip into each one. Dip into leaf green, dip into teal green, and blend them on my brush. If I feel like I want to lean more towards the teal side, I'll grab a little bit more of the teal color. If I want to lean more towards the leaf green side, I will go grab that color. And let's see, I think I will use a round brush maybe here because I want to do a little bit different technique. So I'm grabbing a 4 round brush and just mixing those two colors on my brush. Okay, so I've flattened my brush to a flat brush. Okay, I'm going to go up here on this side and pull back, pull back, pull back, pull back, and just drag that into that vein. Here and do this one. It's just a touch and drag, or touch and pull. Lifting the brush up as you pull to just kind of flick it and let it leave the paint that you want it to leave. So you're laying the brush down and you're flicking it. Flicking, flicking, flicking. Okay. So, and some of these are pretty small, so you might want to go to a smaller brush. But they're all going to get this. Color on their edges. Oops, I just laid my hand in green paint. And looky there. All over my project. Happens to the best of us. Get the green paint off my hand now. Okay. Back to loading my brush here with the 2 greens. Okay, flick. A little bit too much paint in my brush. Flick, 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 flick. And this is a lot of fun because you can really add some character and texture to these leaves. Make sure your brush is flat when you apply it. Okay, this one here needs to be brighter. Alright, I'm going to add a tiny little bit of white to that mix, and we'll just add some little highlights on here. Maybe keep it more at the tip. So I've just barely put any white in that mix. And now I'm just putting a little bit of that on for a little bit of a highlight. Really brightens up these leaves. And one more up here. Okay, those leaves look pretty good. And you can wash in some of your pinks on some of those leaves if you want to. I did not do that, so yes, I did. I did it on my original one, but I think on this one I won't do it until the end to see if that's a color that I need to pull in through there or not. Okay, so we're going to add our daisies in, then we're going to go back and see if we want to add any more leaves around the outer edge of this, because I think I might want a few kind of coming out here. So we're going to take our burnt umber, and we're going to tap where the centers of our daisies are going to be. Just tap, tap, tap. Got one here. Everywhere that you put a circle for a center is where you want to tap that color in. I have another one over here. I've got it too low, so I'm going to put it right about here, I think. Alright, we are going to paint in our, stroke in our daisies next. Okay, I've got a 6 filbert brush here, and we are going to load it completely with white paint. Make sure you have any excess water out of it, because we want pretty much straight paint here. You don't need any moisture in the brush for this. Okay, it's loaded. So when you paint your daisies, I'm just going to paint on top of one of these roses so you can see it. So here's the center. I like to do mine on the chisel edge, but you can do it flat if you want a fatter petal. I lay the brush down, give it pressure, and come up from my pressure, coming up to the tip to that center. And they look better if you can, you know, kind of flick them. Flick them towards the center. And if you're having a kind of turned daisy, then the front petals will just be flat little marks like that. Okay? A more open daisy, they would all be, you know, out here and coming into it. Okay? So this one up here, we're coming into that brown spot, and we'll have some flat ones out here because it's kind of turned away from us. Okay, this one as well, a little bit longer petals here. Right over our rose. And then flat, flat, flat. Okay, this one's going to be all open, and it's a pretty big daisy. So we will definitely need to go over this one a second time. So So that one's a pretty open daisy. And most all the rest of these are turned one direction or another. So I did not lay my pattern lines on here to get precise placement of these daisies. So they might be in a little bit different place than my original one was, but that's okay. I'm not giving as much pressure on the brush, and you see that made the petals a little thinner. Okay, so this one here, you can choose on those two which one is on top and which one is on bottom. So we've got a space here that's going to have to be darkened. In my original one, I just had a little bit of a space, so we'll come in and add something in there. So when you turn it up, you can see that it's coming at us there. I think I made these a little bit bigger petals here. I've got to come all the way into that brown spot that I made there. Here. Okay, let me wide angle out just a little bit so we can see all of the flowers. And so I believe I want to add some leaves in here while those petals dry, because we're going to have to stroke back over a few of those to brighten them up. So let me get my pencil out, and I want to add a leaf that comes in here, maybe a little bit of a leaf peeking out here. I think we'll put a stem. Maybe we'll do them this way. Some stems coming out that direction. Oh, I missed a daisy here. Let me stroke that one in real quick. Get the water out of my brush. And it goes up this way. Okay, what do I do with my pencil? There it is. I want to add a leaf coming up here, kind of bending down, and maybe the same here. Maybe one going out here, and I definitely want to put another one. Off of there. So I'm going to go off camera and get those painted in with the avocado, and then, you know, shade and highlight them just like all of the others. So maybe have one going off the canvas up there as well. Okay, got my other leaves added in here. And like I said, my pattern won't have these extra leaves that I added out here, but you can just take any of these leaves that are on the pattern and put them wherever you want them. I just felt like it needed to bust out of there just a little bit. I felt like it was a little bit too confined. We're going to re-tap a little bit of burnt umber into our centers, kind of clean up some of the white that we stroked in there. Okay, so that kind of sets those centers down in there a little bit. I'm going to get my yellow, my smaller round brush here, and my cad yellow, and we'll tap a little bit of that cad yellow in the centers as well. You can kind of bust it out a little bit if you want. These yellow dots dry. We'll add another layer with some white on real quick, and then we'll let them all dry, and we're going to come in and put some color around our petals a little bit. Dip into a little bit of white and blend that, and we'll just add a little bit of this, a couple of these brighter ones on here. If your yellow ones are not very dark, then be sure and go back and redo them. If they settle down into the brown just a little bit too much. Okay, that's pretty good for those. So we need to let those dry so that we can come back and add some color around there. So now I want to go down and finish on my pot down here. So I've got my burnt umber back on my palette again, and I think I might add a tiny bit of black green to it, just kind of darken it up just a little bit, and we're going to go back over the outer edge, working that in. I'm going to go around some of this stuff, so just very lightly. This will create a little bit of a shadow around this stuff. And then I want you to go back and check your roses and see if there is any place on your roses that you need to add a white stroke back in there. Let's go around this flower here. And I'm going to tip up on my brush, come up on the very tip of that bristles there. Bring this out more. Shape follow there so we kind of know what's going on. A little bit more up here, and let's get a little bit darker back in there. I'm going to tap some green back in there, kind of darken that area. That's the black green that I'm kind of tapping in there. let's add a white highlight on here. So we want to give it a highlight along this edge. I don't know how well this is going to show up here, but can walk it in just a little bit. And then a brighter highlight here. This is just white, so you'll probably have to go back and do that a couple of times because it's going to settle down in there quite a bit on this outer edge out here. See, it's already settling in, and I really feel like this needs to be darker. So it's dry, and that's the black, green, and burnt umber. A little bit more here. A little bit more of this up underneath here, especially on this side, on the left side of our leaves. We want to create that little bit of shadow. I might do it out here. Don't really need it out there, I guess. Okay. A little bit brighter on that highlight, so I'm going to go with my round brush and just grab some white and almost line that. I don't really like that one right there, so I might just quickly remove that. It hasn't been on there very long. A little bit of this one here I don't like. You have to be very gentle because I did kind of scuff that paper up there because I'm erasing on paper, so we don't want to. Alright, I think some of my washes down in here I'm going to make brighter. So that was the teal and the boysenberry. Those are the two I'm definitely going to make brighter. I just feel like they need to be. A little bit of teal. Go over into that dark area and add some of that color in there too. And let's put a little bit over here. Just a touch. Just a touch of that pink in there. Just laid a little bit in there, and then I'm taking the water edge of my brush and just kind of moving it around and smoothing it out. Okay. Let's do some floating underneath our, and again I used burnt umber and the green, the black green. And this is going to kind of set this okay, that kind of settles that in there. This will be the more shaded side, so we can make it a little bit darker over here. A little bit more of a shadow on this side. A bit less of one over here, so I'm going to erase some of that. I want it to be a little more subtle, light. There we go. Just going with straight black green right here. Get right underneath that. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Like I said, go back into your roses and touch up any place you feel like you need to add a brighter white on there. Let me wide angle out, but if you're happy with them, then there's no need to do that. So I think that looks pretty good. I really still feel like that could be just a little bit darker, just walked out a little bit darker maybe. So let me go with just straight black green. That's really going to darken that. I'm a little bit happier with that now. Alright. Got a little messy on this edge. See if I can clean that up. Alright, so we're going to get ready to add our word or words on here. And this is where you can choose to just add one or add two. Since I brought my leaves out, I will probably just add one. And I think I'm going to use the word inspire. That's what I used on my original one. So I just have to decide if I want it to be straight on here or if I want it to be angled. My other one, I had it up here, but I had a lot more room, and I can trim this edge just a little bit. I think I'm going to like it a little bit more down here, so I'm going to put it down here. So the first thing that we want to do is wash a little bit of color on here. And so we're going to go with our teal and our boysenberry, and just wherever you want to have some of this color on here, go ahead and add it in. I put a little bit of this color on all the corners. And then we'll come in with some of the boysenberry. And I might finish out with a little bit of burnt umber on here. And a little bit of burnt umber. Just a little bit more burnt umber. Kind of go around the letters. I don't really want any of the light color to show too much between the letters. I want it to be a little bit darker through there. And then let me take this off this wheel because I want to do some outlining on this before we add it to our piece. It's going to be down here. So I want to take a white, let me find my white. Okay, this is a paint pen, a acrylic paint pen. I got a set of these on Amazon. And I like them because they have a fine tip on them. And I'm going to outline my letters with them. Probably should make sure that your paint is dry, because mine is not quite dry. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry. And then we are going to adhere it on here. And it's going to be beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. I love this design. Okay, let me get this dry so we can glue it on. We're going to glue it on with our DecoArt for paper, just apply a nice coat along the back. Then we've got to come back and shade around this piece. Oh, I almost forgot, while that's drying, we didn't add any color on our daisies. So my original one, I added teal in there, and I love the teal in there, teal green. So I might real quick add some of this boysenberry pink in the center of one of these daisies, and see if I'm going to like that pink in there. Now it's only on the side where the fuller petals are. We don't want to take it too far into that. And if we don't like the pink, we could always go with yellow. I mean, there's so many options here that you can do. I'm going to remove the pink. I'm going to try some yellow. See if I like the yellow. Let's zoom in a little bit. Yellow. Teal. I think I like the teal the best, so I remove the yellow. because we've got a lot of pink going on in this, so we don't want to, you know, overwork that pink. So we're going to add, this is just a wash of this color. A lot of water in my brush, working it in so it can be sheer as we paint it on. Just on the side where the full petals are. Got my paint a little bit too far over here. This is very quick. It shouldn't take you very long because you're just using a little wash of color. A little bit more paint. I think it's going to be needing just a little bit darker. And this one I'm going to kind of it like this a little bit more. I'm going to lay my finger over it and really take that back down in there. That's going to make that center look fabulous. Anytime you feel like you're tapping in too much paint, just touch your finger to it while it's wet and remove some of it. Okay, any of them that you feel like you need to darken just a little bit, then go ahead and do that. I think those look pretty good. A little dab will do ya. You don't need a whole lot of this color, so do not get carried away. If you get too much, you put the first one in and it's like, oh, that's too dark, then just quickly wash it away with a damp brush and wipe it off. Let's wide angle out. Alright, let's get our word on here. So I'm going to get my decoupage medium here. I'm using the one for paper. It's the one that I like the best, but they're all great decoupages. All the ones that, there's just a regular decoupage that DecoArt has. And it will work just fine. So if you have that one, go ahead and use that one. Okay, nice generous coat, then apply it on here. Press down all the edges. I feel like I got enough on this edge here. And when you varnish over it, that is going to help it as well. Alright, we're going to get it pushed on there. I think I might have to go back around my letters again with that paint, because my background paint here was too wet when I did it. So my paint just kind of blended down in there. That one seems okay. And now it's wet from the decoupage medium on the back. So hopefully this will still stand out a nice white color here. And if you've got another stamp that you like, that you know, you want to put on your paper instead of this particular stencil, then you can certainly do that. So now we want to take a little bit of our burnt umber and a little bit of our black green, create that dark shadow color. And we're going to go around this and really set it to the piece. This one down here a bit, and it's up to you if you want to go up on the paper a little bit and darken the edge on the corners. That is definitely going to be a personal preference right there. I just really like it to look aged and go well with the design, like this one here. I need to get a little bit more on that edge. Get it right against it. We don't want to see any light color right there, which I can still see. I must have, not really sure why that's happening, but it is. I got a little bit of a shadow from my paint here because it was too far over on my brush, so let's just remove a little bit of that. There we go. I think that is going to be a done piece, and you can sign it, and it's done. So let me get the two out here, widen up my camera a little bit so you can see them both. All right, so this is my original. It's varnished already, so it's got a glare on it. They're very similar, except for I added these extra leaves out here, and I added an extra one here and here, and then two that are kind of, these two that are kind of tucked, but you know, falling off the edge there. But everything else is very, very similar to this one. I tried to keep it as close to it as possible. As you can tell, the placement of that leaf is not in the exact place of this one because I just freehand drew it. I didn't put my pattern on, but you'll want to put your pattern on so that you can see that. And this is a completely different paper here, and this is on a board, a wood board, and this is on a canvas, 10 by 10. They're both 10 by 10s. Placement of these is a little bit different, but overall it's they're very, 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 very much similar. So I think it turned out great. I hope that you enjoyed painting this. I can't wait to see your version of this design. I hope you paint it and post pictures and give me a thumbs up if you're watching on my YouTube channel. I really appreciate every one of you. Share my videos, leave comments. I so much appreciate feedback, and I will see you guys on the next one.